out in South Carolina, where the GOP are really upping the ante in terms of their hatred for women by proposing a bill that could make abortion a crime punishable by death. Now, this legislation, titled in South Carolina as the South Carolina Prenatal Equal Protection Act of 2023, was originally filed back in December, but here are the deets. The bill seeks to amend the state constitution to recognize life as an individual person from the moment of fertilization and to define person to include an unborn child at any stage of development. Now, in altering the definition of person in the Palmetto State, the bill says that an unborn child who is assaulted or a victim of homicide would receive equal protection under the assault laws of the state, according to South Carolina's Code of Laws. The person who is convicted of or pleads guilty to murder must be punished by death or by a mandatory minimum term of imprisonment of 30 years to life. Now, if passed under the bill, women receiving abortions could face the death penalty. Now, this recently added amendment to the bill would make an exception for abortions to save the host, as I like to call them, the host body's life, so long as all reasonable alternatives to save the life of the unborn child were attempted or none were available. Now, this legislation, however, is written really so broadly that it's completely and totally unclear whether it includes miscarriages. Now, Cenk, it's been really an experience to see how far the GOP will go to punish women in particular with abortion restrictions. So how does this new approach really sit with you?
Yeah, so here we are at the logical conclusion of what the right wing has been saying for decades, which is that abortion is murder, so they're going to now start charging women with homicide and potentially executing them because they're pro-life. Look, it's not us. We're not, like if you get me, oh, that sounds like hyperbole. It's not, you can look it up, South Carolina. Look guys, what Adrian was talking about there is really important. There was a recent amendment to this saying, now look guys, let's be fair. If the life of the mother is at stake here, we shouldn't execute her. But you have to be really sure that they tried all these different things. So it's not an accident. They're saying, no, we should, I mean, you could get a 30-year sentence, a life sentence, you could get executed, but it's homicide and we should put these women in jail forever or maybe kill them. And this is, I swear to God, they say with a straight face that this is the pro-life position. So here we are, Handmaid's Tale. And it's, if you're a Republican and you like that, just, I guess they're saying it now, guys. They're just saying it. Yeah, we'd like to, we made this thing up about abortion. I can get into why it's made up in a second. But we made it up and now we pretend that it's the only thing that matters. And women, who cares about women? They're just fodder for babies. And if they don't do their job in producing as many babies as the men want, let's just get rid of them. So at least South Carolina Republicans, I appreciate your honesty.
This is one of those things where a lot of liberals will tend to get the idea of like, oh, well, it's not really gonna get applied to this extreme. And we need to understand that if the law can be interpreted in a certain way to punish people, it will be. Now, will it be interpreted in the most broad or extreme way for like rich white folks? No, of course not. But what if this happens to a trans man? What if a trans man has a miscarriage? What if a poor black woman has a miscarriage? Now all of a sudden, what you have is you have their coworkers, you have their peers, you have maybe even friends or family that are super eager. Maybe they got a bug in their mind and they're super religious in a particular way that they're really upset about this person. Maybe it's just because they think somebody like cheated on somebody. Maybe there's a personal relationship. For any one of these reasons, you could have somebody's neighbor reporting on somebody, getting somebody thrown in jail just because they don't like you. And like fundamentally, this is something that is going to happen if this law passes, but and also it's something that's already happening in states where they have like put in place abortion bans and stuff like this. We need to understand that we are in the process of this happening. And it's just like all of these other laws that these Republicans are trying to push. The broadest interpretations of them are going to be used. Will it be used against super privileged people? Probably not. And I think one heartbreaking reality about this as well is that a lot of different like civil rights organizations and like other like legal defense organizations, Like sometimes they'll hesitate to come in and defend somebody if they're not like the perfect victim, right? There's a lot of nonprofit money for like these perfect victims, but typically those perfect victims end up being very, very privileged in and of themselves already to start off with. So the unfortunate reality is fascism is just here, right? That is the current state of the United States of America. The only question is how much you see it, and that entirely depends on how privileged you currently are.
Absolutely, Ben. You are spot on correct. And when we think about South Carolina, we do want to bear in mind that abortion is currently legal, but that is only up until 20 weeks of pregnancy. And that's only because the state Supreme Court overruled any legislation that would ban abortion in toto. But the state still bans self-managed abortions. And that's why an unidentified Black woman in South Carolina was arrested and charged this week. Now, the woman's lone crime was allegedly using pills to end her pregnancy. And it happened more than a year ago. This per Jezebel. According to a police report obtained by Jezebel, the woman sought medical care for labor pains at St. Francis Hospital in October 2021 when she was 33. The woman told healthcare workers that she had taken pills to end her pregnancy. The county coroner's office reported the incident to Greenville police a few days later, though it's not clear if the hospital reported it to the coroner's office first. The report said the fetus was stillborn at about 25 weeks and 4 days gestation. Greenville police got a warrant for her arrest in September 2022. Now, it's still unclear why this anonymous woman was charged just this week when her alleged abortion occurred in October 21, which was 9 months before the US Supreme Court gutted Roe v. Wade. Now, this woman has been released from custody after posting a $2,500 bond. And while patients really shouldn't have to lie about their health care in terms of what they've done for their medical choices, abortion advocates really do recommend that those who fear facing charges tell doctors that they suffered a miscarriage rather than had a medicated abortion. Also, South Carolina isn't alone really in attacking medicated abortions. Right now, we are awaiting a ruling from a Trump-appointed federal judge in Texas named Matthew Kacsmaryk, who may issue a nationwide ban on mifepristone. That's the leading drug in medication abortion. And interestingly enough, the lead attorney on that lawsuit pushing to ban the drug is Erin Hawley, the wife of Senator Josh Hawley. And also Judge Kacsmaryk donated $500 to Hawley's 2018 campaign. It's very fun in terms of these facts. Cenk?
Yeah, so look, I think that the woman who was arrested is a little bit of a different case, and I think that that one is debatable. And why do I say that? Because it was in the 25th week. And so, look, the trimesters are not as clean as you think from the outside. It's actually 10-month pregnancies, not 9 months. It's complicated, but it's near the third trimester. So you can have a good, healthy debate over the laws around that and the laws in South Carolina where you can't have it past 20 weeks. But when you're talking about whether it's the issue of the pills that they're trying to ban across the country, including in states, by the way, like Kansas and Montana, where abortion is legal, but Republican legislators are saying we don't care that it's legal. We want to ban Walgreens and other pharmacies from giving access to women at any week of their pregnancy, at any day of their pregnancy. We don't care. And now obviously we started the story with South Carolina saying, not only that, if you do it at any week of your pregnancy, we're thinking about charging you with homicide. So I just want to make it clear to you guys how absurd that is. So a zygote, I looked all this up today, okay, even though we've had 2 kids, but maybe I should have done the research earlier. Zygote is just the first 4 days, okay? It turns out that there are different things, different names. We've used them in the past, but I wanted to tell you their technical definitions, okay? So a fetus doesn't come in until the 9th week, right? And coming in is kind of a funny way of putting it. You call it after the 9th week a fetus. Before that, I always thought it was an embryo, but it turns out in the first 2 weeks, it's actually called a blastocyst. Now I'm telling you that because you could get executed in the state of South Carolina for getting rid of a cyst, a blastocyst, which is far more similar to semen than it is to a full-grown human being. Okay, so this is the medieval times that we live in now.
The fact that you said medieval times is really, I think, pivotal because Look, when Republicans say they believe in Christianity or they believe in the Constitution, you need to understand that to be a blatant lie. More than anything else, conservatives in the United States believe in white supremacy. And one central narrative of white supremacy is that cisgender white men should be treated like kings of their own suburban castles, right? And sort of through that logic, they think that women and children should fundamentally be their property, which is why the attack on, for example, reproductive freedom, as well as the attack on queer rights, are happening simultaneously. It is basically a reassertion of white supremacists within the United States to declare women as property and to declare children as property. And the reason why that ties into queerness is because heaven forbid you have somebody grow up to be gay or trans, right? That's like, for whatever reason, one of the worst nightmares of these conservative parents. They want children to be property that grow up to be clones of them. And so like, fundamentally, this all ties into like larger narratives about how these people think the world should work. And so that's just one of those things that I want to harp down on, that this isn't about the Constitution to them. This isn't about religion to them. They view religion as just a convenient, like, okay, yeah, I'll say I'm religious, right? I mean, literally, the whole argument for religious freedom in the United States started specifically because the government made segregation illegal. When the government made segregation illegal, that's when all of these right wingers were like, wait, if we say that discriminating against black people is our religious belief, then we'll bring that to the Supreme Court. Now that argument lost in the Supreme Court when they brought it, but right wingers still held on to that argument, and they have fully rallied around that. That's actually why the number of Christians in the United States actually rapidly increased between the 40s and the 70s. It actually reached its peak in I think the Reagan era, specifically because they just viewed Christianity as a convenient tool for discrimination. And so that really should tell you everything about these white evangelicals and their actual commitment to both the Constitution and their supposed Christianity.
I'm gonna say one last quick thing on this. Look, if you're a right winger, you don't believe us that it's a Christianity thing, it's targeting LGBTQ people, black folks, etc. Okay, fine. But you all know that they're not gonna execute any rich people in South Carolina. You know that, okay? And by the way, even if they're black, they're not gonna execute them if they're rich, okay? But poor people, the government is gonna come for you. And then don't get surprised later. Well, I thought it was gonna apply to the others. I didn't know it was gonna apply to me. No, it's definitely gonna apply to you, whether you're poor or you're middle class. So you got no power in this country. The rich will be able to get all the abortions they want. They can get it when it's a blastocyst, when it's nearly human. It doesn't matter. They'll go outside of the state. They'll go to Paris. You know they're going to get away with everything. You know that the rules don't apply to them. They only apply to the poor and the middle class. So understand that. And even if you're the most rabid right winger in the world, you know that's true. Thanks for watching the Young Turks. We really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.